Welcome to UK Chronics. Tonight, the financial base of the Sussex family has clearly started to break, just as we began looking into 5 minutes ago. The palace has now confirmed problems with Archewell, with millions missing, as new documents are revealed and a strong move from the Crown aims to hold Montecito responsible. The silence in London has finally ended. And for Harry and Meghan, their dream is slowly turning into a financial disaster. Just 5 minutes ago, high-level sources inside the palace confirmed what investigators have been quietly saying for months. The Archewell Foundation is facing a serious crisis involving missing millions. And the paper trail leads somewhere no one expected. Forget the interviews. Forget the polished documentaries. This is about real money that seems to have disappeared without a clear explanation. Why did a charity that was meant to help the world become surrounded by financial secrecy? And why is the palace choosing this exact moment to reveal the truth? Look at the numbers. $11 million gone. In just 1 year, the Sussex family's main charity did not just struggle, it fell sharply. But where did that money go? Was it used for the global change they promised? Or is there a darker truth hidden behind the walls of Montecito? For the first time, the British monarchy is stepping forward instead of staying quiet, and they are no longer just worried. They are confirming that there are serious issues. This is not just a story about tension between brothers. It is a deep investigation into a brand that claimed to be open and honest but is now surrounded by doubt. In this special report, we are going deep into the center of the Archewell fraud claims. We have found tax records that many major media outlets have avoided discussing. We are studying the management costs that do not seem to make sense and the sudden disappearance of major donors who once supported the foundation. This situation is like a high-risk game of financial poker, and it seems the palace has decided to challenge the bluff. From private meetings in London to urgent efforts to control the damage in California, pressure is building from all sides. If you think you understand the Sussex story, think again. By the end of this video, you will clearly see where the money may have gone and why this could mark the end of the Archewell era. We have the evidence, we have inside information, and we have one document that Harry and Meghan never wanted the public to see. Stay with us, because what we are about to show is not just a scandal, it is a major turning point in history. Watch until the very end because the final detail, the palace confirmation that changes everything, is something you cannot afford to miss. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell, because the royal world has just changed forever, and the truth begins right now. Let's follow the money, because numbers, unlike carefully prepared public statements, do not lie. To understand how large the Archewell issue really is, we need to look closely at a financial system so complex that even expert accountants are confused. When Harry and Meghan created the Archewell Foundation, it was presented as the start of a new and caring time in global charity work, a foundation that would be different from old royal charities. And yes, it was different, but maybe not in the way people expected. Let's look at the official tax reports, the Form 990 documents that every non-profit in the United States must legally submit. In its first major year, Archewell brought in an impressive $13 million. Now move forward to the most recent tax year that has been studied, and that number has dropped sharply. We are talking about a huge fall in donations, going down to just over $2 million. That is an $11 million drop in just 1 year. But losing donations is only a sign that a brand is struggling. On its own, it does not prove fraud. The real warning signs, the ones that caught the attention of federal investigators, are found in how the money was spent. Look closely at the management costs compared to the actual money given to charity. While millions of dollars were moving around, the amount that actually reached people in need shows a very concerning pattern. We are seeing extremely high legal costs, large payments for public relations services, and running expenses that are similar to big corporations. Why would a charity need a public relations budget that is bigger than the money it gives to help others? This is where the financial trail becomes very confusing. Archewell is not just one organization. It is a complicated network of companies registered in Delaware, including media companies, production businesses, and the non-profit foundation itself. All of this makes it harder to clearly separate charity work from business activities meant to make profit. Delaware is widely known for keeping company details secret. So why would a charity that claims to be open and honest use the same type of hidden system that secret hedge funds use? Money moves between these connected groups in a way that may be legal on paper, but in terms of fairness, It creates a dark space where things are hard to see. When money enters the Archewell system, tracking exactly where it ends up becomes almost impossible, like trying to grab smoke with your hands. Financial experts have noticed clear problems, with large amounts of money placed under unclear labels like consulting or program services, without the detailed breakdown expected from such a well-known organization. The Sussex family promised to build a strong and open community, but instead they created a structure protected by layers of companies. The royal family runs many charities with clean and clear financial records. King Charles's Prince's Trust is often seen as a perfect example of honest and open accounting. Because of this, the palace knows very well what a properly managed charity looks like, and they also recognize when something is wrong. A foundation can make mistakes with money, lose support, or even pay very high salaries and still just be seen as poorly managed. So what turns this situation from bad management into something as serious as fraud? What exact action made the usually quiet royal family step forward and confirm the worst fears? The answer is not coming from California. It is coming from London. And the evidence they have shared is about to reveal the truth behind the entire system. For years, the royal family's approach to Harry and Meghan has been to stay calm and silent, following the well-known rule, never complain, never explain. Even when major interviews aired, expensive documentaries were released, and powerful books were published, Buckingham Palace stayed completely quiet and did not respond publicly. They handled the pressure without reacting. But there is a very big difference between family disagreements and serious financial wrongdoing across countries. That is the point where everything has now changed. Just moments ago, the situation shifted in a way no expert could have expected. The palace did not just allow a rumor to spread. They gave support to a worldwide investigation. According to trusted sources close to the royal household, people who only speak with direct permission from King Charles III, the Crown is now clearly and strongly separating itself from the financial collapse of the Archewell Foundation. But why speak now after so much silence? To understand how serious this is, you need to understand how the palace works. It is not just a family. It is a massive organization worth billions. It has teams of strong lawyers, expert financial investigators, and skilled risk managers. For months, these experts have been watching what is happening with Archewell from across the ocean with growing concern. They saw the complex network of Delaware companies being created. They noticed important Archewell leaders, including presidents, media heads, and campaign managers, suddenly leaving their roles, as if they were escaping a sinking ship. The palace recognized all these warning signs because they themselves manage large amounts of money in carefully checked charities around the world. They know exactly how a proper system should look. The confirmation came in a quiet way, as royal actions often do, but its effect was very strong. A senior royal aide told trusted journalists that the monarchy has no control, no involvement, and no shared financial responsibility for any of the Sussex family's American business activities. On the surface, this may sound like a normal legal statement. But in the careful and exact language used by the royal family, it is a very serious warning sign. It clearly means, we understand what is about to happen, and we are separating ourselves completely. Think about when this statement was released. It came at the exact moment when financial authorities in America are increasing their attention on Montecito. The palace is quickly building protection to keep the sovereign grant and the wider royal system safe from any damage caused by a possible Archewell collapse. King Charles is said to be deeply upset. He is a father watching his youngest son face a serious crisis. But he is also a king with a duty to protect a 1,000-year-old institution. When he has to choose between family and duty, the crown must come first. And now, the crown has made its decision. Harry and Meghan will have to deal with the consequences on their own. Take a moment to think about that. The very institution that Harry spent years publicly criticizing for not protecting him and his wife is now the same institution stepping back, removing its support, and allowing them to face a possible federal investigation. The irony is hard to ignore. But the palace's careful and distant move also points to a more serious truth about what may be happening behind closed doors. The royal family has access to information networks and financial intelligence that the public does not. If they are now publicly distancing themselves from Archewell at this exact moment, it suggests they believe something serious is coming. They may see warning signs that others do not. They may believe an audit or investigation is approaching. From their point of view, the numbers may not add up. This is no longer being treated as a simple family disagreement. It is being framed as a controlled legal protection strategy. By stepping away, the palace is signaling to the public, and possibly to financial authorities, that Harry and Meghan are operating fully as private American citizens without royal protection. That means they are also fully exposed to any scrutiny from regulators. So if the palace believes trouble is coming, the question becomes, what triggered it? What caused this situation to reach this level? If we move past public statements and look back at the financial records, the next part of the story becomes even more concerning. We know large sums of money are unaccounted for. We also know the palace is distancing itself. But the key question remains, where did the missing money actually go? To answer that, we have to go beyond social media images and polished magazine stories. We have to look directly at the financial records. And when those records are examined, the idea of a simple charity begins to break apart and is replaced by a much more complex and questionable structure. Let's break down how this financial system appears on paper. When people donate to a charity, there is a basic expectation. Most of the money should go toward helping people, whether that is food programs, shelters, or community support. But the Archewell tax filings show a very different pattern. The way the money is distributed raises serious questions. One of the biggest areas being examined is labeled strategic consulting and public relations. In a normal nonprofit, these costs are usually small. But in Archewell's case, they appear unusually large. Millions of dollars, which were supposed to support charitable work, seem to have been spent on high-level PR agencies and consulting firms focused on managing public image, handling controversy, and responding to critics. This raises an important question. Is improving the public image of wealthy public figures a true charitable purpose? According to standard tax rules, it is not considered a valid charitable activity. At the same time, the line between Archewell the charity and Archewell-linked media and production ventures appears blurred, making it difficult to clearly separate public benefit work from private business interests. Then there are the so-called phantom expenses. These include very high travel costs and luxury-related spending. Harry and Meghan have often spoken about climate responsibility and public service, yet the financial records suggest frequent use of private jets, luxury hotels, and high-security travel arrangements tied to foundation-related activities. This creates a difficult question. When a private jet is used for an event connected to charity work, is that cost personal or charitable? The records suggest that this boundary may not always have been clearly defined. Looking further, salary and staffing patterns also raise questions. Archewell employed highly paid executives, with compensation levels similar to major tech companies. Yet many of these top-level staff members left quickly. More than a dozen senior employees, including presidents and communications directors, resigned in a short period of time. In most organizations, high turnover can signal internal problems. But in a non-profit facing increasing scrutiny, rapid departures can also suggest something else: people leaving before possible investigations. This brings the allegations to their central point. The issue is not simply whether a charity struggled or failed. It is about whether donor money was used in the way donors expected. Supporters believed they were funding global charitable work focused on compassion and community impact. But critics argue the evidence points to something different, that the money may have been used to support a tightly controlled public image and personal brand system instead. They paid for the lawyers who took tabloids to court. They paid for PR teams that were accused of pushing negative stories about the royal family. In effect, they funded the system that supported Harry and Meghan's personal fight against the institution they left behind. Critics describe this as a clever but deeply questionable use of the American tax system. You create a non-profit foundation, surround it with the legal protection of charity status, raise millions in tax-free donations, and then use that structure to cover the extremely high costs of your own public and media-driven life. But any system like this can only continue for so long before people start noticing what is missing. The IRS is not focused on titles or celebrity status. It focuses on financial accuracy. And right now, critics say the numbers are raising serious concerns. The palace did not step back only because of these financial questions. According to this narrative, they stepped back because they understand what usually follows next. When the public believes they have been misled, the reaction is often severe and can permanently damage reputations. As reports of missing funds spread into mainstream media, even people who once strongly supported Harry and Meghan are starting to distance themselves. Influential circles in Hollywood and Washington are becoming more cautious, because no one wants to be connected to a scandal if it continues to grow. Now, the focus shifts to public opinion. Long before the palace ever spoke about financial issues, many people in the United States had already started to feel uncomfortable. When Harry and Meghan first moved to California, they were welcomed like modern royals in exile. They were seen as victims of a harsh and outdated institution, and many in Hollywood supported them strongly. Major companies and platforms quickly offered deals, and a large media empire was built around their promise of honest and meaningful storytelling. But public support is not endless, especially in the United States, and especially when expectations are not fully met. The change in attitude did not happen overnight. Instead, it happened slowly, as trust began to weaken over time. A major turning point came when a senior Spotify executive, Bill Simmons, publicly criticized them and used a very harsh word to describe them. That moment was not just an angry comment from an employee. It was seen as a signal that the tone had changed, and criticism was now openly acceptable in mainstream entertainment circles. As Archewell's donations reportedly dropped from 13 million to around 2 million, public perception also began to shift more sharply. People started asking difficult questions. Why do figures who speak about media pressure continue to stay constantly in the public eye? Why do individuals who present themselves as champions of ordinary people live in extremely expensive homes while their charity spends large amounts on PR and legal support? Many public appearances, such as handing out supplies or visiting community centers for short periods with full media coverage, started to be seen differently. In some cases, the cost of travel, security, and production for these events appeared to be higher than the actual support being delivered on the ground. Over time, this created a sense among some observers that the philanthropy was more focused on image than impact. The public, dealing with their own financial struggles, began to question this gap between message and lifestyle. The result, according to critics, is that trust began to fade. And once that trust weakens, the story around any public figure can change very quickly. Hollywood works on a very simple and tough rule: return on investment. When Harry and Meghan were getting huge viewership numbers from their first interview with Oprah, they were almost impossible to criticize. But as later projects did not perform well, as animated shows were quietly canceled, podcasts were dropped, and documentaries started to feel repetitive and focused on the same complaints, people in Hollywood began to slowly step back. Famous celebrities who once proudly attended their wedding suddenly had schedule issues when invited to Archewell events. In Los Angeles, where competition is intense, silence often means rejection. This reaction is not just about them becoming less popular. It is about a deep loss of trust that cannot easily be repaired. Americans often support comeback stories and people who challenge powerful systems. But there is one thing they strongly dislike: feeling misled or taken advantage of. The label of Grifter, which started as a strong comment on a podcast, has now spread into wider media discussions. Major news outlets that once avoided criticism are now publishing detailed reports about Archewell's unusual spending patterns. The story has shifted completely. The image of victims has been replaced by a view of possible greed and entitlement. However, the public reaction, the loss of support, and even losing deals like Spotify are only part of the problem. The bigger issue is still developing. While the public may be pulling back emotionally, the companies that control large amounts of money, such as streaming platforms and corporate sponsors, are preparing to make important decisions. The situation is not just unstable, it is actively falling apart. If the Grifter label seemed harsh, the situation could become much more serious if major contracts that support their lifestyle begin to end one by one. When those contracts end, the real impact begins. What we are seeing looks like the breakdown of a very large global brand. The corporations that helped build that brand are now looking for ways to protect themselves. To understand the worldwide impact of this situation, it is important to look at how Harry and Meghan built their financial success after leaving royal duties. Their system was not based on physical products or long-term business models. It was built mostly on access, image, and reputation. But reputation can change quickly, and right now that system is under pressure. Looking at one of their biggest deals, Netflix reportedly agreed to a contract worth around $100 million. The expectation was simple: create meaningful and engaging original content that reflects their public message. In reality, Netflix received one highly watched but also very divisive documentary focused on their personal story. After that, There were cancelled animated projects, a documentary that did not receive strong responses, and a polo-related show that had little public impact. Reports from inside the industry suggest that Netflix executives were already concerned about the level of output. However, concern alone does not cancel a contract of that size. What can affect such agreements are legal or reputational risks. Most major contracts include clauses related to public behavior or controversy. These allow companies to end agreements if a partner becomes involved in serious legal or public issues. With the palace now publicly distancing itself and concerns being raised about Archewell's finances, companies like Netflix may have a clear legal reason to reconsider their involvement. They would not need to present it as a reaction to low performance, but instead as a necessary step due to risk and compliance concerns. This would allow them to exit while protecting their financial position. When one major company takes such a step, others often follow. A similar situation already occurred with Spotify, where a large deal ended early. The publishing industry could face similar questions. Harry's book, Spare, was very successful and sold widely, but it also created distance between him and his family. The publisher had planned for multiple books, but the challenge now is what comes next. It becomes difficult to continue telling the same story, especially if financial investigations are happening at the same time. The public message that once supported their success may no longer have the same impact. Without that central narrative, it becomes harder to maintain the same level of interest or support going forward. But the isolation does not stop with Hollywood or business centers like New York. It has spread across the world and even into politics. Harry and Meghan wanted to present themselves as global leaders with influence. They aimed to stand alongside major figures like the Obamas, the Clintons, and top leaders connected to the United Nations. They wanted to be seen as important global voices without holding official political roles. However, Washington, D.C. is a place driven by power, strategy, and information. Political leaders often have access to the same financial concerns being discussed elsewhere. In that environment, people avoid anything that could harm their reputation. Invitations that were once common have quietly stopped. They are no longer present at major political events. When powerful leaders gather, their absence is noticeable. Politicians, who depend heavily on public image, are careful about who they associate with. Being linked to a foundation facing financial questions could damage their careers. As a result, the Sussexes are no longer viewed as global representatives, but as a risk. In trying to build a new identity after leaving the royal family, they aim to succeed in America. But instead of gaining full acceptance, critics argue they have faced rejection on both sides of the Atlantic. They are now separated from royal support, losing influence in entertainment circles, and facing distance from political groups. They continue to live in a very expensive home, but with increasing pressure around them. According to this narrative, their brand is weakening, financial support is decreasing, and their public image has changed. However, the situation is still developing. Losing popularity or business deals is one challenge, but facing official investigations is far more serious. If government agencies begin formal inquiries, the consequences could go beyond public opinion and affect their legal standing. At the start of this discussion, the key question was about the missing $11 million and why the British monarchy chose this moment to respond. The explanation presented here suggests a combination of institutional protection by the palace and increasing financial pressure on the Sussexes. The claim is that the missing funds were not simply lost, but became part of a larger system involving public relations costs, high personal expenses, and a network of connected companies. This system is described as one that mixed charitable work with private brand management. If that structure is now under review, the focus shifts to what happens next. The immediate concern is no longer about new business deals or public influence, but about responding to any legal or financial review. If authorities request financial records, the focus will be on documentation and clear accounting. In a striking contrast, the royal institution they once criticized is now described as the one system that could have offered protection, but has instead stepped away. The monarchy continues forward, while the Sussex brand faces uncertainty. Without institutional backing, they may have to handle any legal or financial challenges on their own. What was once presented as a new independent path is now being questioned as a risky strategy. This situation is often framed as a lesson about reputation, responsibility, and the importance of clear financial management. The palace has chosen to distance itself, parts of the entertainment world have stepped back, and attention from authorities may be increasing. The story is still unfolding. Now the question shifts to public opinion. Do you think Harry and Meghan can manage and overcome a serious financial review, or could this mark a major turning point in their future? Share your thoughts below. And if you want to keep following how this situation develops, make sure to subscribe and stay updated as more information becomes available.